This waterfall wonderland is filled with vibrant red cliffs and turquoise streams, but it's a little tough to reach. Getting to the waterfalls requires advanced reservations, creative packing, and a long hike to the campground. So in this episode, I'll let you know how to get a reservation, I'll give you a few tips for packing, and I'll let you know a few lessons that we learned from multiple trips to Havasupai. The Havasupai Reservation sits in northern Arizona, and it's remote to say the least. The reservation is home to the little village of Supai, which sits in the Grand Canyon. The Havasupai tribe is known as the people of the blue-green water, and they consider themselves to be the guardians of the Grand Canyon. The reservation is known for its beautiful waterfalls and picture-perfect turquoise water. But more on that in a bit. The Havasupai tribe opens their land to visitors from March to November each year, but every person that enters the reservation has to have a permit. Each camping permit is good for 3 nights at the campground, and permits are $455 per person. If you want to stay at the lodge, reservations are over $2,300 for 3 nights, and each room sleeps 4 people. Personally, I wouldn't stay at the lodge because it's 2 miles from the first waterfall. If you stay at the campground, you practically wake up next to the waterfalls. There are 3 options for getting a permit, and each option goes through HavasuPaiReservations.com. First, the tribe opens a preseason lottery each December and January. They call it a pre-sale. You pick your dates, and if you win, you get a permit for a date you selected. You'll have a little time to finalize your payment, then you're set. It's that simple. After the preseason lottery, open dates are released onto the reservations tab of the website. Popular dates and holidays go quickly, but you can still find good dates to reserve. Just act quickly because reservations go fast. The final option is the cancellations and transfers list. Some people have to change their plans, so they list their permits on this page to sell them to other campers, because the tribe won't give them a refund. This is a great way to get last-minute reservations. Some people cancel their summertime permits in February, so you just have to keep an eye on it. Once you have a permit, you'll need to start packing. Packing can make or break your trip to Havasupai. You need to do it right, or you'll cause yourself a lot of misery. At the end of our last trip, we were almost back to the trailhead, and this woman passed us. She had 3 shoulder bags, a gallon of water, and she was tightly gripping a single trekking pole. This looked miserable. Even if she was staying at the lodge, she had 7.5 miles left. Packing poorly is a good way to ruin your Havasupai experience. So here are a few things to keep in mind while you're packing. First, pack it in, pack it out. Essentially, this means you should only pack what you can bring back. I've seen people carrying massive camping stoves, 4-room tents, and other random items into the campground. The problem is, most of these items never leave the campground. The campground is littered with old water jugs and impractical gear that people leave behind on their way out. Don't be that person. The hike to the campground is tough, but the hike back to the trailhead is tougher. Think about that while you're packing so you don't leave a mess that other people have to clean up. Another thing to remember is don't overpack, and most people say they pack too many clothes. We all want clean clothes, and some people want special outfits for each day of the trip, but all you really need is a couple light layers of clothing, a jacket, and something to swim in. This will change slightly depending on the season, but don't overthink it. Next, the water in Havasupai Creek is beautiful, but it's not safe to drink, so you should pack a water filter. You'll definitely want to take it with you if you're hiking to Beaver Falls or the Confluence. Aside from that, there is a spring at the campground that provides drinking water, and for the most part it doesn't need to be filtered, but there have been instances when the tribe asked people to filter their water due to safety concerns, so it's good to have a filter just in case. Next, you'll want to pack plenty of food. This sounds like a given, but stay with me. A lot of people ask about getting their meals at the Supai store and cafe. While this might seem like a good option, it's not. The store is set up to service the town, and it has a very limited selection of goods. The cafe is a nice treat, but its hours are inconsistent. Last time it was closed 3 of the 4 days that we were there, so it's not really reliable. We take freeze-dried meals, oatmeal, pancake mix, and other light items, and we put it all in a food pouch so it's easy to hang. One thing that a lot of people forget is cash. The store and cafe accept credit cards, but we experienced an outage when we were there. This made cash essential. Plus, if you don't want to walk all the way back to the village for a snack, you can just stop at the fry bread tent at the top of Havasu Falls. The tent has fry bread and soda, but it only accepts cash. Fry bread and a drink can cost more than $20, so plan accordingly. Like I said, packing can make or break your trip to Havasupai, so you need to take extra time to make sure you do it right. If you need a little help, our Havasupai travel guide has a full packing list, trail walkthroughs, waterfall details, and the optimal Havasupai itinerary to keep your adventure on track. Our Havasupai travel guide is available at the link in the description. We've been to Havasupai multiple times now, and these are a few lessons we learned along the way. First, lodging the night before your trip is key. Hualapai Hilltop serves as the trailhead for Havasupai, and it's a long way from the nearest town. It's 2 hours from Kingman and 2.5 hours from Flagstaff. These drives can make for a long morning, and you're not allowed to camp at the trailhead. So we like to stay at Grand Canyon Caverns Inn the night before our trip. It's only an hour from the trailhead. Honestly, the inn has seen better days, but the rooms are nice enough. Plus, Grand Canyon Caverns Inn is where you have to pick up your permits. So you can pick up your permits in the evening and get a quick start in the morning. Staying here just makes sense. Next, reaching the campground requires a 10-mile hike, and you'll want to start your hike as early as possible. The trail to Supai is wide open, and you'll be exposed to the sun. Temperatures can be brutal in the summer, so many people start hiking between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. to avoid the heat. Also, there is no water access on the first 8 miles of this trail, so plan accordingly. Fall and spring are much cooler, and we've started our hike as late as 7 a.m. in the fall without any issues. Just pay attention to the temperatures as your trip approaches so you know when to start hiking. You don't want to get stuck on this trail in 100-degree temperatures, especially on the way out. On a side note, hiking early and getting to the campground early can also put you in prime position to snag a great campsite when other people leave. Next, if your desired campsite isn't available, you can set up next to it so you can swoop in when other people leave. In my experience, this is the best way to get the most popular campsites. All you really need to do is ask people when they're leaving, so you know when to make your move. Campsites along Havasu Creek and at the top of Mooney Falls are normally the most popular, so it takes a little strategy to get one. Once you set up camp, you'll need to secure your food. There are no bears in Havasupai, but there are squirrels, chipmunks, and other rodents, and they're persistent. They've been known to chew holes in backpacks to get to food. I always take paracord to make a clothesline, then I hang my food bag from the clothesline. So far I haven't had any issues, just don't leave your food in your backpack. The tribe also helps with food storage by providing 5-gallon buckets at each campsite. But these buckets aren't guaranteed, and they tend to disappear as the season progresses. Another thing that people always ask about is the bathrooms, and for the most part they were nice. They use composting toilets and there's no running water, so you'll want to take some sanitizer. During our last trip we saw people cleaning the bathroom multiple times each day, so they were always relatively clean. One thing that I don't like mentioning, but it's necessary, is flash flooding. Havasu Creek is prone to flooding, and we've experienced it firsthand. Flash flooding in Havasupai is no joke, and people have passed away in these floods. Also, Havasupai doesn't have a warning system, so you need to be aware of storms and changes in the weather. You'll normally get a little cell service in Supai and the campground, so you can check the weather. Havasupai is particularly vulnerable to flash flooding during the snowmelt in the spring and monsoon season in late July and August. You can't plan for flash flooding, but it's something you should be aware of. Also, when flash flooding occurs, it has the power to reshape the canyon and the waterfalls. Over the years, the layout and the appearance of the waterfalls has changed due to flooding, so things might look a little different when you get there. Of course, everyone goes to Havasupai for one reason: the waterfalls. And Havasupai has 5 main waterfalls. There are other small waterfalls and cascades, but these are the 5 you'll want to prioritize. As you enter Supai, you'll cross Havasu Creek. This creek leads to all of the waterfalls, so I'll list the waterfalls by where they appear on the creek. The first waterfall is 50-Foot Falls. This waterfall is probably the most underrated waterfall on the reservation, and a lot of people miss it. 50-Foot is tucked away on a relatively hidden path. Branches cover the entrance to the trail, but a small sign will point you in the right direction. After a short walk through the trees, you will reach a massive pool with 50-foot falls in the distance. Just downstream from 50-Foot Falls is Navajo Falls. This waterfall has pools and a vibrant moss wall. The trail leading to Navajo is just off the main path between the village and the campground, and there's normally a sign to show you where to go. Navajo and 50 Foot felt a little more private than the other waterfalls, and we had them to ourselves on more than one occasion. One waterfall you probably won't have to yourself is Havasu Falls. Havasu sits on the southern edge of the campground. This is the first waterfall you'll see when you arrive, and it's the last waterfall you'll see when you leave. You can view Havasu from the cliffs or the beach, and it's a great place to relax after a day of hiking. On the northern edge of the campground, you'll find Mooney Falls. In my opinion, Mooney is the most beautiful waterfall in Havasupai, but you have to get to the bottom to see it in all its glory. While that doesn't sound bad, it can be a tall task. You'll have to climb through a small cave to an opening, before descending steep, wet cliffs to the bottom. The views along the way were great, but the footing was not. This was a rough climb, and it was a little nerve-wracking. But like I said, the view at the bottom is worth it. If you make it to the bottom of Mooney, you might as well hike to Beaver Falls. This trail moves in and out of Havasu Creek as it passes through Havasu Valley. This is the most beautiful stretch of trail in all of Havasupai. The Red Canyon walls set a gorgeous backdrop, with lush foliage alongside Havasu Creek, and from time to time, bighorn sheep will even make an appearance. There are a couple obstacles along the way, but the final payoff is a beautiful scene at Beaver Falls.